Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. Today's topic is how to cultivate resilience, and hopefully by the end of the show, you'll be inspired to try some new practices and have the knowledge and power to connect with yourself in order to realize your self-expression and live your most fulfilled life. My guest today is Chantal Pierrat. Chantal's mission is to increase women's leadership across the globe. After earning an MBA from the University of Colorado, Chantal left a career in medical device manufacturing in search of work that would align her dedication to transformative leadership with her passion for living an inspired, impactful life. In this episode, Chantal and I talk about how she increases connection with herself, her fascination with how the feminine spirit expresses itself, why the power of connection is the cornerstone of self-expression, and why it's important to have a practice to cultivate resilience. The free giveaway today is the guided intention meditation that Chantal gave us. I love this giveaway because it walks you through a meditation practice you can start doing today. Get yours at wellwomanlife.com/080show. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. We're celebrating 4 years this September, so it's super exciting. If you're in the Albuquerque, Santa Fe, New Mexico area, definitely join us. And if you're not and you would like to start a Well Woman Drinks of your own, email me at info@wellwomanlife.com. I want to let you know, too, that this year's Superpower Retreat will be October 26th and 27th in New Mexico at the beautiful Sunrise Springs Resort. So save the dates and check out wellwomanlife.com/retreat for more information. We have an awesome lineup of speakers this year. Really, really wonderful. Definitely a place for you to retreat, rejuvenate, and activate those superpowers that you know you have, that you need a supportive community around you in order to do it and get ready for 2018. You can also continue the conversation with Well Woman Life in the community group at wellwomanlife.com/Facebook. Now to my interview with Chantal Pierrat. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about everything with you. We have so much in common, and there's so much alignment between what you're doing and this show and what I'm doing. So I'm super excited. Chantal, why don't you start by telling me, what are you up to? Like, what are you working on in your life, and how does it impact women's lives and well-being?
Okay. What am I up to? Well, for one, I feel like I have been chosen by a purpose that is to serve women and their unfoldment and the rise of women leadership in the world globally. And the reason I say that I've been chosen is because, that question, what are you up to? It's sort of like, what are you doing? Well, for me, it's the doing part comes after. It's like, who am I in this world? And what do I stand for? And I will do what I'm told once that alignment takes place. Once I know who I am and I'm in connection with the deepest part of myself, but also something bigger than myself and in service to something bigger than myself, then I can focus on the what and the doing and the how and how is it all going to come together. And as an entrepreneur, what am I up to is very multifaceted.
Well, actually, I want to go ahead and just dig into a little bit of who you are first then, since you framed it that way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So as I said, I feel like there has been an injection of purpose and in me that I think started when I was in college as a women's studies major, and I was a double major women's studies and English. And I just remember waking up to a lot, both through literature and through the study of women's history, where I felt that just, in your 20s, it's rage at the injustice of it all. But it was also coupled with just a fascination of how the feminine spirit expresses itself. Rage over the fact that none of that was documented, and just in love with the pieces that were documented, and wanting more. But, and then I went into the Peace Corps. So I was very activist oriented in my early 20s. And then came home and I came to Boulder actually, and started in a medical devices company, which, there's many reasons how I fell into that, but suffice it to say, I felt very alive by being in a startup environment and just new business. And I was in marketing and sales and just learning all these business skills, and did very well and loved it so much. I went on to get my MBA. And the whole time I am carrying on this thread of how do I make the world a better place, and how do I make myself a better human being, and better not in terms of what altruistic acts can I do, but better in terms of like, how can I increase the connection I have with myself and rely on myself more and feel more tender to myself. Because the truth of the matter is, as much as I was into women's studies and as much as I was into activism, I had a war going on inside of me where I was not good enough. I was pretending not to be a woman because I didn't want to align with any kind of victim-y energy. I wanted to align with success and power and step into that. And to me, I saw that all happening in the realm of men and in the realm of the masculine. So I actually spent a good part of my life pretending that I was a man, and fooling myself thinking that everybody was convinced that I was a man. Really depleting myself as a result when you're going into an environment where actually at this company, I was the only woman, going into that environment over and over again, pretending to be somebody else at the same time, really working on my career and wanting to, be successful. It was just all just so exhausting.
I think a lot of women do that, take on that masculine role because we think we have to in order to succeed. Yeah.
And you know what? I had to. It would not have worked in this company. It just wouldn't have worked. And I think now is a different time. And I think there's a bigger opportunity now, and maybe there was then, but for me and the whole situation, it just worked. And, that energy served me well, and it actually kind of broke me in because I couldn't keep it up and it was not sustainable. So I ended up leaving, and there's a lot to that. I was passed over for a promotion. There's a lot like in that industry that was tough for most women. But I left consciously and said I didn't want to continue living a double life. And so it was when I started in publishing, over the 11 years, I worked at a spiritual publishing company called Sounds True, and we would publish Eckhart Tolle and Jack Kornfield and Pema Chodron and Carolyn Mace, and I mean, just, Clarissa Pinkola Estes.
But this was audio, right? I mean, was it books?
Well, we started when I came to Sounds True, we started the book division.
Oh, okay.
A couple years later.
Because I've listened to the audio for sure.
Yes. So we started out as an audio company, and then we launched into books, and that was a big part. I was a big part of that. And then now Sounds True does books and audio and online courses and events. And it's like a whole ecosystem of consciousness. But at the time, I was like really digging into who am I? And at the same time, probably had the greatest career growth ever. And here I am in my 30s, and I really started thinking about like, what does it mean to be a leader, and how is that connected to the truth of who I am, and how do we merge the two? And that is when I started to realize how much I was compromising in my success by compromising myself as a person at work, and more specifically, compromising and sort of throwing under the bus my feminine side, my femininity, my feminine power. And that's when I started really coming into being. And we have lots of coming into beings throughout our lives, hopefully that, there's more than one to be had, but that was a really big one, that big realization. So who I am now is somebody who believes deeply in the power of connection to self, connection to others, connection to something larger than self, as a cornerstone for my self-expression in the world. And someone who believes deeply in taking the feminine to another level, to unleashing the feminine on the planet, to creating a new paradigm where the feminine is fully expressed and has a chance to create from a full expression. And, somebody who's also an activist, somebody who's gone from deep inner work and deep realizations and awareness and mindfulness to what am I going to do with this consciousness that I have now? I'm not saying I'm fully, enlightened or awake, but like, what's my responsibility now that I've learned these things about myself and I've self-corrected and I've, sort of unleashed a whole new human being I didn't even know was there. What's the point of all of that? Right. And so now that piece of really working and being an activist, being a civic leader, in addition to being a thought leader, a spiritual leader, a business leader, a community leader, is really, really important to me.
Yeah, that's the piece that interests me a lot, because I have a background in activism and social justice and women's health and rights and policy. And I do see sort of the personal development and self-help world, for lack of better words, really focus on the individual. And I rarely see leaders in that space taking it the step further and saying, actually, how do we use this now in the bigger picture? And I know Marianne Williamson talks a lot about that. She ran for Congress, and she's trying to really bridge the gap between spirituality and politics. And so it sounds like you definitely see that as part of what you're up to.
Yes. And now when we get to what I'm up to, that is a huge piece of it, because the rest is, a big step, and it's a big step, and it's an important step. But these times call for more, and we do not have the luxury. And it is a luxury. It is a luxury to focus on our own personal unfoldment and spiritual consciousness. There are women all over the world just trying to survive. And so I hold it very dearly as a privilege to be able to spend time thinking about that. And so I'm not going to squander that. I don't want to squander it. I'm not saying that people who don't enter into more action activist oriented work with their consciousness are not contributing. I think it's a huge boon to humanity to ponder and be mindful and to be aware of our limiting beliefs and how we came to being. But at this time in our lives, with what's going on in the world, we cannot afford to stretch that out too much longer. So we really do need to add the activist piece.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to touch on something you brought up in the previous introduction of sort of who you are. And that is when you were, in the industry that was very male dominated and masculine, and you worked in that for quite a while. That was a big part of for the first part of your career. Where was your personal life in all of that? Did you have to sort of put that aside in order to focus on that career?
Yeah. So at the time I was, I'm going to have to do the math now. That was about 27 when I started that through 32. So it was 4 years in that whole industry. I'm not saying publishing, there was still a thread of that in the publishing world. But in the medical devices world, yeah, I was personally engaged and with someone I've been with, my husband now. And life was simple, no kids, all you have is a boyfriend and you're engaged. I mean, right. My personal life was I live in Boulder, there's friends and community and love and all of that. And I was, yeah.
So that was pretty good. You felt good about that. You were just mostly focused on your career at that point.
Really focused on my career and felt great about just being in a community where a lot of the questions of why are we here and, what are we meant to do, while it was very angst provoking as it is for anybody in their Saturn return around the age of 28 to 30. And it was just wonderful to be talking and in communication with people who are, philosophers and thinkers and kind, compassionate people. So that was my community here through the Buddhist practice I was doing and through yoga. It was, I could have just at that point, my viewpoint was this is all I need. Mm-hmm. This is all I want in my life. These are the only conversations that I want to have, so yeah, that changed. But I was totally bifurcated. Because I would go and I was, the only one in my community who was in tech and, in this totally double world. Mm-hmm. So that was exhausting to me. So on a personal level, I just, it was really hard to keep those two worlds, to thrive in both of those worlds.
Oh, for sure. I mean, burnout was just inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. I want to ask you because a lot of our listeners are high achieving women who are practicing awareness and consciousness or trying to or starting or have been doing it a long time. And there's a question of, in fact, this came up last night at a workshop we did. And the question was, this high achieving woman was saying, I'm really in this stage that we call lingering, where you sort of go inside and you just sort of, you're not in action anymore. You're really needing to it usually happens after burnout, right? You go into this sort of very quiet, almost could be dark space too. And she really, as a high achiever, go-getter type A personality, was sort of like, how long do I have to stay here? Like, when can I get back to the action? And so how did you handle that? Because it sounds like you're a high achieving, woman as well. And you had to go through a lot to increase the connection, as you said, to yourself and really do that work. How did you balance doing that work, but also doing more in your career?
Okay, so first of all, the word balance it's a strong word. It's a strong word. I don't know that balance is the word that I would use. I love the idea of it. But to me, it's sort of like waves. And we call emerging women because there are different phases when we're facing like dark nights of the soul. And I don't think there's just one that we face. And I know this because I'm facing one, I'm coming out of one. So as an entrepreneur, you might have 2 or 3, like within a 1-year period. But at that time, I don't know if lingering is the word. I kind of want to use the word healing. And there are things that we discover about ourselves and there are behaviors that we've been depending on that, we think are allowing us to survive. And in many ways, they allow us to survive and they protect us, but they chip away at our life force. And there's a point where you just can't do the thing anymore because it has drained your life force. And so at that point, that's where healing needs to happen. So, closing out the lights, drawing the shades, and really going in. And for me, it's just reflection and self-kindness, self-compassion, making enough space for that. And I find that healing is the word. And when we're on the end of that, right? You're just like, I got it. You're free of the attachment, the contraction, the psychic attacks, and you're coming out with a knowing, capital K, from that experience. And when you're injected with the knowing, capital K, right? I find that like that's when the emergence starts, and you can't pick the timing on that. And it's like a tidal wave where you decide, I will not live a lie any longer. I can only take steps that are in alignment with this new truth of who I am. And you're excited to do it, and you want to kind of like flex the new muscles that you have. And I don't know if that's the right metaphor, but you want to really kind of use this new inner knowing in a way out in the world. That is now you're going into an emerging phase. And I have been in situations where I have tried to get to that emerging phase. And sometimes you can use that, like if you're trying to figure out a business model, or it's not always you've just learned something deep about your parents or, right, some deep psychological thing. This is, the need for quiet and the need for healing and the need for receptivity happens on many, many levels and many degrees. It's on a spectrum. But when you're on the other side of that and you've got the knowing, that's when the fire starts. And if you try it beforehand, it's like fitting a square peg into a round hole, and people can feel it. You're not fully baked, or the idea is not fully baked, or you need a little bit more time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you rush it and go into that action phase too early, you make bad decisions. You things don't flow. Well, they're just not going to happen, right, and it's going to feel stale. And then, it's just, you just got to go back in and wait. And so do I balance it? I don't. I feel like it's like a flip down, receptive, out, emerging, and back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah. To me, it's a cycle. We go through, different stages. And it just was an interesting question that came up about how, it's almost like, how do I get to the action? But like, how can I get through this dark period quicker? And that's a common question, among people who are doers. They want to make things happen, and it's really challenging for them to slow down and just be with themselves and do the work, that internal work that needs to happen in order to get there.
I know. If someone can figure out how to do it faster, please get in touch with me, because I would love that too. And the only way that lately I have been is surrender, which sounds so slow.
Yeah.
It sounds so slow. It's surrender, surrender, surrender. And, in the end, right, on our last breath, that's what's there, is surrender. And there's an incredible relief when you think of that. So if there's a way to bring in the surrender earlier, like, so it's not at the end of a failed business or a failed marriage, or, where you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go with it and get behind what's happening now instead of fighting what's happening now. If there's a way to bring the relief that comes from that surrender earlier in the process, that's kind of what I've been working with, like not waiting till I really have to surrender, right, but bringing in surrender as I'm down there, as I'm at the bottom of the abyss or at the precipice of the abyss, or lingering, or, yeah, and just being open and not trying to figure it out, staying out of the head and getting into the body. Surrender is a somatic state. It's not a conceptual mind state. It's a somatic state. Same with trust. Like, trust does not exist unless you feel that relief in your body. So that's, I think, a really good focus.
And I think, this question of getting it done faster is so funny to me, because that's exactly, the opposite of what we need to be trying to do when we're in that phase. But I do think that we develop tools over time that we go back to, sort of our go-to, tools and techniques that we've learned. What are some of yours? Like, I have mine, and different people have things that they do, but what are your go-to sort of techniques and practices when you're needing to really go and to that place and heal?
Okay. So these are things that I just do throughout the day, because I need to heal a lot throughout the day.
Yeah, totally.
Like, on one hand, something really great happens and we're in a partnership, and, this is fabulous and there's so much impact. And then on the other hand, payroll's coming up and we've got some challenges over here. And then on another hand, somebody calls and they want to speak and they're fabulous. And then on another hand, something in the membership site just broke down. So it's like up and down, up and down, up and down. So cultivating resilience is, I think, one of the most important things we can do as women who are, really kind of stretching and putting ourselves out there and in that zone of discomfort / expansion / growth. So the way I do that is journaling in the morning, super helpful. Also helpful to remember, things throughout the day. If you've got a lot on your plate, if you're like me, you just forget. I don't even know, when I had a phone call, was it last week? Was it today? Yeah. So, writing down even the most mundane things is super helpful. Just, 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes twice a week. Seriously, any that you can do is helpful. I also do a Kristen Neff exercise, and she's somebody who studied at Stanford the effects of self-compassion on things like weight loss and stress and anxiety and disease. The practice of self-compassion has a very positive impact on all of those things. And this is, very science-based, research-based, work that Kristen Neff has done. And so one of the most simple practices that I do, at least 3 times a week, some days I've done them like 5 times in a day, is to just put your hand on your heart. And I put my hand on my heart anytime that I'm thinking I should have made that call, or, oh my God, I've got to, is to just put my hand on my heart and just take a deep breath and just say, like you would to a child, like, I love you. I trust you. You're doing the best you can. In fact, I don't even say anything. I just put my hand on my heart. That's like, I've skipped all that, and just to have compassion for myself. Because I think women are our own worst enemies. That inner critic is just hard, and it's draining, and it's one of those other things that pulls life force. Yeah. Leading a double life and on the outer, but also leading that double life on the inner, where you've got your awareness and then you've got your inner critic. Mm-hmm. So hand on the heart is another thing. And then, gosh, I cannot say enough about being in connection with other women. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just got to do it. You've got to lean, every day I'm checking in with somebody. In my inner circle. Hey, how's it going? Even if it's a text, we can't do this alone. And we're not going to do it alone, because women don't do things alone. The feminine paradigm is one of connection. So anything that you can do to stay in connection, not just once in a while and have a good lunch catch up. No, I'm talking about daily people who are tracking you daily. Mm-hmm. And who are you tracking daily? Getting a posse of people where what's happening in their life. Oh yeah, so-and-so, today she's leaving, she's flying out for X, like 3 or 4 people like that, where what they're doing in their day or for their week, and makes a whole lot of difference.
That's a really good one. Good. Those are some great tips. Well, I do want to hear about emerging women. You brought it up. And as our listeners probably know by now, Well Woman Life is a sponsor of your upcoming event in October in Denver, Colorado. And we're super excited to be part of it. And I'd love for you to talk about what the event is and how long you've been doing it. And how did it come about? What do you hope to achieve by doing this event?
So this is our 5th annual event, and I'm excited because it's in Denver. And when we first started out, we were in Boulder, Colorado at the St. Julian Hotel, and it was fantastic. And we had Brene Brown and Liz Gilbert and Ani DeFranco and Alanis Morissette, and it was like my playlist of power women, Awesome. And then we moved to New York, and then the last 2 years we were in San Francisco because we just kept growing and it was too big for Boulder. And now we're coming back full circle to Denver this time, and which has a lot of, I think there's more millennials per square mile than any place else in the country. Oh, wow. A very strong startup community. The women's groups in Colorado are phenomenal, and so I'm excited about being in my home state, my now home state. And having it here. So, our lineup is fantastic. We are getting more involved in terms of getting our audience to actively collaborate and make a difference, and come and find ways to take the work that we do and the perspective that we have and partner with other women to exponentially increase the impact that we as women leaders have in the world. We cannot do it alone. So we have Alicia Garza from Black Lives Matter. We have the director of the manager for Hillary Clinton's campaign in Colorado, and a few other people on a panel called Move the People. how to create influence through social movements and community. So that's one of the panels. We have a very strong focus on women in power and money, how women as a collective have approached money in the past and what the opportunity is for women in money moving forward, both for women to become investors and also as entrepreneurs to build businesses that scale, that require, capital, so we can start getting involved in that ecosystem. And also just our own personal finances. How can women are going to inherit, I think it's 2/3 of the nation's wealth in just like 7 years. And what's the consciousness that we're bringing to our relationship with money when that happens? Most of the women that are in positions of affluence and inheritors have male finance advisors, and they're not really engaged. Yeah. So that's something we want to change. So it's politics, it's money, it's sensuality, sexuality, desire. And what does that have to do with leadership? It has a lot to do with leadership. Yeah. It has a lot to do with leadership. So reclaiming ourselves as sensual beings and understanding the power of that in terms of what we create in the world is a big topic. So we'll have Esther Perel talking about that. She's fantastic and a very powerful speaker on relationship, desire, and women and men, for that matter. We have entrepreneurs that have built, $300 million companies that are here to mentor us. We have executives from Google and Aetna and HP and Southwest Airlines, SendGrid, and I'm trying to think of all the others, but that are bringing their leaders to speak about a lot of the issues that the corporate setting is facing in terms of increasing women's visibility and power within corporations, and in the entrepreneurial setting. And we're also just talking about wellness. Like, what does it mean? Like autoimmune. Did you know that 70% of the people who have autoimmune diseases are women?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, what? So we're addressing that, that's real. So we're going to be talking about physical health and hormones and, thriving and, but most what I want to come out of this is, and we do this every year, where they'll write books, they'll start businesses, they leave their jobs, they start their own business. They partner. Two very big, high-profile women partnered and created this giant event and philanthropic donors network in New Zealand. And that's really what we want to have happen. We want women to be stepping up, speaking out, and collaborating with each other to make real change.
That sounds awesome. I love it. Really looking forward to it. And we'll be getting that information out to our audience, and also linking to it on our website on the show notes for this show. Now it's time for our segment called Superpowers for Success. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Being a well woman includes being financially healthy. Our sponsors, Lorraine L. and Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions, are on a mission to eliminate complexity and confusion from your financial life. They replace Wall Street jargon with straightforward talk you can understand, and they create investment and retirement plans customized for your needs and your future. Download a free copy of their latest book, Don't Let Your Money Kick the Bucket Before You Do, and learn how to avoid the biggest mistakes women make when planning for retirement. Go to bettermoneydecisions.com/wellwoman and download your free book today. Chantal, I want to move into our segment called Superpowers for Success to end our interview here. And the first question I want to ask you is, what does success in life mean for you?
Okay. This is a big one. Right? Because, success has meant financial success. Do we have a business with a big, fat, black bottom line on it? Or, are we paycheck to paycheck? And that's, I think, important. You want to build a business that's sustainable. But not counting the impact that we're having in the reach and the number of women that are stepping out because of being involved with emerging women is doing a disservice to the very message that we're communicating, that it's time to create a new paradigm. And the new paradigm will have different success measures. And so, yes, you want to have something that's financially viable, but I want to make a difference in the world. I really want to make a difference. And that's got to be number one. A marker for success to me is how many people in your life do you have that you really care about and you can spend time with? You can spend quality time with. That is probably the biggest marker of success for me personally, but also as a business. How much does our business foster deep, intimate connection with other human beings? Because that connection is what propels people forward. That connection is what creates change. That connection is what makes an idea come alive in the world into action. So,
love it. Okay. And then Chantal, when did you know you were really good at what you do? Was there a moment when you were like, oh, I pretty much rock at this. Like, I'm good at this?
I don't know. Let's see. Okay, first of all, what am I good at? Yeah. I don't know. I think,
when did you know you had the ability to inspire and connect women?
I think I was a mobilizer and an activator when I was in my teens. I could feel it. And yet I could feel it just from the resonance with other people. But yet I didn't allow myself to take it to the next level because I was too afraid of the risk of failure or the risk of rejection. And so I think it's laid dormant in me. I mean, honestly, until this very moment. It could be like this very moment. Even when I started Emerging Women, we had a blog. My name wasn't on the blog. I don't even think my bio was up on the website for the first year. It was just Emerging Women. We are this, we are that, but there was no like me. And so I think I'm just kind of coming into this honor that I've been blessed with, this opportunity to be a voice of influence and inspiration in this space. Like I'm still in this state of becoming, honestly. So I'm not like in a big state of awareness around it. I think it's just been dormant in me, and I've had an inkling, but it's not until now that I've felt brave enough to step into it.
I love that. And I think that really resonates with a lot of our listeners who might be wondering what their purpose is or what they are really good at. And it's usually not something brand new. It's usually not something that you went and you learned because you went and did something externally. It's usually something like you just identified that you've known you had since high school and probably earlier.
Yeah.
So that's great. And, what superpower, Chantal, did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
Okay, I've got to go with love here. I've got to go with love. I know that's, I don't know if it sounds like a platitude or, overdone or cliche, but I just feel so deeply for others, and coming to bring that to myself as a fellow human being and understand that we're all connected. I think that understanding and that revelation that's the biggest power that we have as human beings, is the power to love ourselves and to love one another. That's my superpower. I feel like I have got a jet pack on my back with that.
That's awesome. That's very powerful. What advice would you give your 25 or 30-year-old self?
Patience, and just be kind to yourself. I mean, that's, impatience is unkind. I think I really was hard on myself in that time. And 25 to 30, you just want to get it all figured out. You don't want to be in the unknown. And being in the unknown is the greatest gift that we can give ourselves, because that's where things they create from there. Like the plant comes from the deep soil. And you need to give yourself time to be in there without attacking yourself, and be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And patience.
And do you identify as a feminist?
Absolutely. I almost said abso-effing-lutely, which I will say. But yes.
And why is that? Like, what is that to you? How do you identify that way?
I just love it. I love the energy around it. It's forward, it's action, it's spirited, it's unifying, meaning that, like, I just want to put my fist in the air. And I feel like it's a term. I'm reclaiming the energy around the term potentially. I'm not even, for me, it's not a term that's in reaction to anything. For me, it's a term that is in and of itself its own creation, and it carries the vibration of new paradigm. And I'm excited about it. I want to be part of that. I want to be with other feminists, men and women. I want to, it feels fast, right? Whereas if I don't have something to say, or I can't put a label on it, or not like labels are everything, but they're sure handy. They're like shortcuts, Right. It's like poetry, one word that carries the essence of 1,000 pages. Yeah, I feel like it's a shortcut, and it's got so much juice to it. And I'm sorry that some people feel edgy with it. I don't, I just don't get it. I just feel like on fire about it.
Awesome. Okay. And last question, Chantal, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
Oh my, it's not super exciting, but it's called Essentialism. Essentialism is, I call it the KonMari for leadership, right? KonMari is all about your clothes and your stuff. Yeah. And essentialism is for leadership. And I've been really kind of geeking out on this Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. Like, what can I do with my time that's going to give me the most results? And how can I strip away the noise? And I find that this book is a really great way to return to what's essential to myself as a leader, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a mother, as a community leader, as a friend. What are the things that I can do? It's very similar to the Stephen Covey model as well, but just kind of stripping it down and just doing. What will I do that will get the biggest results? And I've been really blown away. It's a very wonderful book. I can't recommend it enough.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll definitely link to that. That's a great recommendation. And I want to thank you so much, Chantal. It's been so fun talking to you.
Yes, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Giovanna. And I just want to say, thank you for really being an advocate for wellness in women, because I think that we are burning ourselves out, and yet we've got a lot more, quote, fight in us. So what we do and how we do with what we have is crucial in terms of leveraging the impact. So this is a really important focus.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Thank you. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.